Hello and welcome to From the Inside Out with Ashley. So good to have you today. I hope you're having a great morning or evening or afternoon whenever you're listening to this. So this is From the Inside Out, where we are helping empower others to feel their best on the inside so they can shine on the outside. And I'm so excited today to have my friend Shelby Matthews here today. She is an emotion expert. And so she's going to be talking to us today all about how our emotions affect how we feel and can affect physically our health, like having physical symptoms. So I'm so excited to have her on here. Just real quick, before we get started, I want to, make sure that I mention our sponsor, Nadana Wellness. If you want to hear more about it, you can go to nadanawellness.com. It's where we help people find the root cause of dysfunction and disease in the body, rather than just treating symptoms. So if you or a family member are suffering with a disease or dysfunction in your body, and you just want to really know what's going on, and you've gone to doctor after doctor, or you've been trying to find answers, you can go to nadanawellness.com and you can book a free discovery call to talk to one of our experts. So let's jump right in talking to Miss Shelby. Shelby does something called emotion code. She's certified as an emotion code practitioner. So talk to us about that. Like, what is that, and how did you get into that? Maybe tell us your story first of how did this journey start?
All right. So I was pretty much the classic story that we hear a lot of: the tired, burned out, overwhelmed mom who can't seem to get her act together on the inside. At least that's how she feels. And she doesn't know where to go from there, and she doesn't know what to do. That was me. And I had a lot of anger issues. And looking back, I didn't so much have anger issues as unmet needs. And I didn't know how to advocate for myself and process my emotions effectively, or even really effectively parent, even though I wasn't failing. It just felt like that. So it all came crashing down. And I decided to give therapy a try, because where else do you go when you are mentally struggling, right? Now, there's a time and a place for therapy, and I don't want to say don't go to therapy, because it definitely can help, and it depends on what you need. I didn't need therapy. I needed to learn how to process my emotions. So therapy tanked for me, and I went searching for something. My sister had just started her journey in getting certified in emotion codes, so she introduced me to it. I thought she was crazy, and what she was doing couldn't work, because muscle testing, what's that? I live in one state, she lives in another. She can't even test my muscles. That's what I thought it was. I was so clueless. And anyway, she did some sessions on me, and I couldn't even explain it other than the anger levels in me went down. My pain level went down. I could actually respond to my kids instead of react to my kids. And anyway, that's how I got into it. It took me, I'm a big doubter on things. It takes me a while to choose in sometimes. So it took me a whole year to even really believe that emotion code was real, yet I was transforming into a much better person. My pain was leaving, and so here I am. Now I'm a practitioner trying to educate others on emotions and how much it affects our mental and physical health. So that's kind of how I got into that.
Okay. And so how does emotion code work? Like, how does that work when you're doing, like, if you're a practitioner, what are you doing with emotion code?
So we probably should cover muscle testing just a little bit.
That's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
That's a tricky one. That's probably the hardest part for people to grasp is muscle testing.
Yeah.
Yet you're asking the body through muscle response techniques. Let me go back and rephrase that. Sometimes you'll see that with chiropractors or nutritionists, and they're testing for supplements. But you can tap into the subconscious mind and ask more about the emotions trapped in there, as long as a bunch of other things we won't get into today. So through muscle testing, once I connect to a person's energy field, I can, or their subconscious mind, however they want to, say that, I can just ask the subconscious mind and the body, what are you holding on to? What trapped emotions are there? And the subconscious mind tells me exactly what is trapped in the body. And because emotions have a vibration to them, when we trap them, they start, I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself,
That's
but
okay.
they have a frequency and they start causing problems in the body. So by releasing those frequencies off the body, we're lightening the load on the body, so to speak.
Yeah. So peeling off the layers.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. So how do you believe emotions are connected to physical health? I mean, you already told us your experience, like you were having anger and you were having, so I don't know what kind of health things you were having going on with that.
There was a lot going on on that, but how do emotions affect our health? That was your question,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Like, how is
So
it connected to physical health?
because each emotion has its own vibration, we don't trap our positive emotions, right? We don't trap
Oh, that's good.
happiness and
Yeah.
joy and peace. We like radiate that, we share
Yeah.
that, we spread that. But the
Right.
negative stuff we suppress, or we try to wrestle with it, we try to shove it aside, run from it, whatever we do. And that's when it becomes trapped. But each emotion has its own frequency, and that's low level. Now there's
Mhm.
different, we got lowest, I think, is shame, and then other frequencies
Yeah.
have a higher, lower vibration. And so when you've got that low level of vibration trapped in you, it can look like inflammation in the muscles, chronic back pain, neck pain, and maybe it can't be cleared up with your chiropractor or a massage. It could be trapped emotions. And when you've got that frequency vibrating enough in the body, it can eventually lead to dis-ease and eventually to disease. So
Yeah.
it
Okay.
literally
That
was
was,
breaking
yeah.
down the body.
Okay. And that answered my second question. I was going to ask you about some examples, but those are great examples because those are some common things that people complain of, neck pain, back pain. Um, and you wouldn't think, oh, that's my emotions. You think it's the muscle or the bone or whatever. You wouldn't think that's emotion. So what are some other signs, some common signs that somebody might be holding on to trapped emotions that you've seen in your practice?
Chronic illness, chronic pain that just doesn't go away. Those are things that manifest in the body. It doesn't just stop at the physical body, but they might have a difficult time connecting with their spouse or their children,
Mm,
or with anybody. We don't diagnose an emotion code, but I see a lot
right.
of people who are struggling with feelings of anxiousness or depression, and those are signs. Feeling like they can't feel the positive emotions,
Mm,
which we'll probably talk more about this, but there really isn't such thing as positive emotions and negative emotions.
hmm.
Emotions are just feedback, but we don't like the negative feedback, so we call them negative emotions.
Okay.
So we'll try to wall ourselves off from that, and then we can't connect with others. We can't move forward in life. We feel stuck. We're in pain and we can't explain it. Those would all be symptoms of someone with trapped emotions.
So then are you saying that it's better like the way you were? So it's better for you to face the negative feedback than to continue to suppress it because then you would release it away from the body. If you're
Yeah.
if it's in a feedback loop, you just stop the loop.
Yes. And people don't like to do that. We don't
Yeah.
want to face
Well, yeah,
pain.
yeah, because you have to face all of that. You might have to
Yeah.
face some past pain, so it's easier just to stuff that down. Well, we think it's easier to stuff it down.
Yeah, but it will. There's a saying out there: trapped emotions never die. They'll just come forth in uglier ways. So you might
Ooh,
think that you're just trapping your emotions or you're just moving on, but the
yeah.
body doesn't see it as moving on, and it will manifest as worse things down the road.
Oh, wow. So you're saying that it can build up just like a fire, like you add a little bit of fuel to the fire, it's a little fire, and then if you keep adding more and more and more, it just becomes this blazing thing.
It definitely can compound like that. And also the subconscious mind is the one holding on to the emotions. And the subconscious mind doesn't, it only operates in the here and now. It doesn't operate in the past or the present. It's just always now. And so it sees that trapped emotion as it's going on now. So sometimes it is just one or two trapped emotions from the past, but then, yeah, sometimes it is compounded.
So you're saying even if it's something that the subconscious, even if it's something that happened in the past, it's thinking that it's something right now that's happening to you?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I know, everybody's heard subconscious, conscious. Like, do you have a simple explanation of the two? Like how you explain it to your clients as far as I guess, what their purpose are and like what their function is?
I'll try to simplify it. It's
Okay.
a little bit of a.
It's okay if you don't. I mean,
it's kind of a. It's complex and it's not complex. So the subconscious mind is kind of the powerhouse of our mind, not our brain, but of our mind. The brain and the mind are two separate things. That gets a little confusing for people, but the subconscious mind is the one that basically is in charge of a whole lot of stuff. It's the main powerhouse. The conscious mind is the one that makes all the decisions, and we think we're making decisions from a conscious place, and we are, but if it's contradicting what the subconscious mind is thinking, we've got a wrestle going on and a struggle in our life. So the goal is actually to get the conscious mind and the subconscious mind working together, but we're not trained in that. We don't know how to do that. So a lot of times we're trying to operate from the conscious mind, but the subconscious mind is the one running the show in the background.
Okay. So that's why sometimes we can just stay stuck. Like we feel like we're stuck and we just don't know why. And it's probably because our subconscious and our conscious are fighting with each other.
Yes. And the subconscious will win because it's the more powerful one.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Well, how can people recognize that they have these blockages going on? Like, what are some things that they can pay attention to or know? Like, hey, I'm listening to this podcast. Like, do I have that? Like, what are some things that they could recognize in their own lives?
Well, pretty much, I think we all have trapped emotions. So
Yeah,
it's problematic ones that we want to pay attention to. And every time I get a new client, even if they have no concept of what I do, they know they've got a trapped emotion. They can, I hear things like, I just can't move past this thing that happened in my childhood, or I can't forgive this person, or I know I have past trauma from my divorce or from this horrific thing or this mild thing that happened. It doesn't even have to be that bad. They know that there's something there. And if they can't pinpoint it to a time or an event, then they will say, I just can't move forward. I just can't get where I want to go. So it's some way they're stuck.
Okay. Yep. I can definitely say I've had those times. So in your experience, how significantly do you think that unresolved emotions could contribute to chronic health issues? And can you share, I know with HIPAA and like, you're not going to share specific clients, but could you share with us any like success stories that you've had with people with unresolved emotions, how they had chronic health problems along with it, how they've cleared that?
Sure. And actually, right before I say that, I also want to say that chronic emotional problem or trapped emotions can lead to chronic illness and health problems, but it can also go the other way where we might have a chronic health issue that leads to trapped emotions and mental health issues that need to be addressed too. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, I wouldn't even think about that.
Yeah, and we don't. So sometimes when somebody's dealing with the chronic health, they don't even realize that now we've got a mental component that needs addressed. I just got to get my body better, but the mental part of it has taken a hit too. So yeah, it can go both ways. I'll just use myself as an example. I had chronic low back pain for years, and now some of this was was due to accidents and injuries and stuff like that. And I just thought, I'm going to have to live with this the rest of my life, because of those injuries. I'll never get better.
Yeah.
And so when I was first starting emotion code, and again, I was so resistant. I remember one point when my sister was like, you don't need me for this. You need to learn how to do this for you and your kids. So I was practicing on myself, still not believing it, yet I'm getting results. And I remember telling myself, okay, if I release a trapped emotion from my low back and my pain goes away, then I'll believe.
Wow.
Don't do this, but but I did. So I specifically targeted my low back pain, and do I have a trapped emotion that is causing my low back pain? And it was a yes. I identified the emotion, I released it, and instantly my pain level decreased by half. And I was like,
wow,
that did not happen. So I released, I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 emotions. It wasn't even that many. I kept releasing them right then, and my pain level just went down and down and down until there was no pain. And I'm like,
wow,
that's still not real. It's going to come back. It never came back.
Wow. Well, that just shows you right there how important releasing those emotions are. Well, in talking about releasing emotions, I'm sure people are like, okay, well, how can I release my emotions on myself? So what techniques do you use? I know you talked about the muscle testing and that. So, but how do you help clients process and release those emotions? How does it differ from like traditional therapeutic practices?
So if you come in for a session with me and I do emotion code on you, and I am doing muscle release or muscle testing, muscle release like that, muscle testing release, you know what I mean? Releasing your muscle testing.
Yeah.
Then it's very quick. We're going to get up to about 30 emotions, 20 to 30 emotions released in a session. And then you're going to have to process those out. And again, it's just a frequency. So it takes a few days for those frequencies to release and, things to shift and settle. And people can learn the emotion code on their own. They can go buy the book. They can start learning it just by reading the emotion code. They don't have to get certified. It takes a little bit of practice to learn muscle testing and to learn how to trust yourself. And a lot of people get frustrated with that because they don't trust themselves to do the muscle testing. Yeah. And then you also have the problem of staying neutral in your own story, which is why you have trapped emotions in the first place.
Right. So then you just keep it deeper.
Yeah. So it is possible. It is doable. Those are just some things to watch out for if you choose to go read the emotion coding, go down that road and learn that. But there's also another way that you don't have to muscle test. Okay. It's a little bit longer, but really not that long. And basically what you're doing is you're learning to identify your emotions. And I thought that people knew how to do this. I'm like 10 years into this. I'm like, oh, people know about their emotions. They know how to say what emotions they feel. We know about 5 emotions, I think. I mean, that's not a proven fact, but we don't know how to specifically identify this emotion and name it and know the definition of it.
Or sometimes we don't want to name it.
And sometimes we don't. I can't be feeling this because, I can't be fearful because I'm strong, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed when I've taught certain classes on emotions, one of my more enlightening classes is when it's an hour of me just defining emotions. And they're like, that's what that emotion means.
Oh, wow.
And all I'm doing is reading the dictionary definition. It's not even a special definition. So if people can learn to stop and take a moment and think, what am I feeling right now? Or what was I feeling in that situation when things didn't go so well? And name the emotion. And I would challenge them to look up the definition because that's going to give you some insight.
Right.
And then once you identify that emotion, play devil's advocate a little bit with yourself. Because if you've got an emotion you don't like, you've got a story behind it. So is it a limiting belief, something that's not true, like I'm not good enough?
Yeah.
Is it an unmet need? Is it an expectation? And it might be an unrealistic expectation, yet we think it's realistic.
Mm-hmm.
If my house needs to stay Pinterest perfect all the time
Oh
and
gosh.
kids are not on board,
Yeah.
and now I'm frustrated and resentful, I might need to change my expectation, right?
Right.
So
Right.
once you identify the emotion and the story you're telling yourself, then you've got something to work with. If I've got an unmet need, then I can start advocating for myself. Or I can choose a different belief. Is it true that I'm not good enough? Maybe I am good enough and I just don't know enough information yet. You know, so that it doesn't sound like that's an emotional release, but it can be, because a lot of times we're stuck in our loops.
Yeah.
We start breaking the loop and moving forward. So
Okay.
that's one way.
That.
And then there's other ways, like exercising, crying can release emotions.
Yeah.
Journaling, getting a massage, a colonics, believe it or not. Maybe she talked about that.
Yeah, she did a little bit. Yeah.
To release emotions.
Okay. That's very good. So how can individuals proactively manage their emotions? Like, I guess that's some of the ways is they can journal, exercise, massage, anything else that you would add to that to help prevent any physical future issues?
I think one thing that I would suggest is I want to be careful here because I don't want to get word for word here, but maybe we don't need to manage our emotions. Maybe what we need to do is learn what they are and how to process them. Because I can manage my anger and not let it explode all everybody, but that doesn't mean that I'm processing it or even learning how to effectively deal with or use my anger. So just by, again, learning about our emotions and how to process them, how to work through them, how to feel them.
Yeah.
I'm always surprised at people who don't want to feel their emotions. Yet if you'll feel your emotion, that frequency that it is, right through you in 90 seconds. Yet we trap it for decades.
Wow. 90 seconds. Wow. That's crazy. So it's almost like whenever you were saying that, the word acknowledge came to my head, like us acknowledging that this is an emotion and then giving ourselves permission to feel the emotion. Because I feel like sometimes too, as kids growing up, you're told to, oh, suck it up, don't cry, you're good. Like, and so I feel like it's almost those learned behaviors sometimes too, that's why we push them down. Is because we kind of learned that growing up, depending on our family dynamics and what we were taught. And then when we get to adulthood and we've got all these emotions and we don't know what to do with them, we don't want to acknowledge them. Let's just put them over here on the shelf and then we'll maybe manage, like you said, manage them, straighten them, pull them out a little bit, then put them back in.
Spew them all over our spouse or our children.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. And then start teaching them some learned behavior.
Yes. And the cycle repeats. Yes.
Right. So that kind of talks about that tells me what I was going to ask you next, just about, processing it and understanding. What about, can you discuss the concept of emotional triggers and how they relate to our health, our overall health?
Yes, that is another thing we don't want to acknowledge and we don't want to face.
Right.
It's the emotional triggers and we will run from them. So we've all been through some sort of emotional triggering, I don't want to say triggering yet, but some sort of situation that caused some emotional distress in us. And we probably trapped it more than likely. I'll just say, yes, we did. Because we all do it. It's just part of the human experience.
Yeah.
And then we might move on in life. A lot of times this will happen in our youth, in our childhoods, earlier on in young adult lives, especially when our emotions are so high. Imagine that. And we trap these things and then we forget about it. But that trigger is there. It's almost like this an emotional bruise. And then sometimes in life, something touches that bruise and we react.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, we might not even remember it's there. And I've got a story to share with you. It's a little bit on the extreme side, but I think it also paints the picture.
Okay.
So when I was a teenager, in the early driving years, I lived in a small town out in the middle of nowhere. So teenagers were, always out and up in the mountains, up in the country roads, being a little reckless. And I found myself in numerous situations, not me driving, but with other teenagers, other young adults, where very near disastrous accidents almost happened, as well as losing. Unfortunately, I experienced a lot of death in my younger years. And so losing a lot of friends and acquaintances and kids in high school to really bad car accidents. And so I didn't get help for this. I mean, it was just kind of a part of life, and all the teenagers around me were going through it too, because I lived in a small high school or a small town and all went to the same high school. And that's just, we all experienced it. It didn't occur to me that maybe I need help. And so I kind of forgot a lot about that, but those triggers were there. And then I had teenagers, and I'm learning to drive. They're learning to drive. I'm not learning to drive. They're learning to drive. I'm learning how to let them drive. And that brings up a whole lot of trust issues, right?
Yeah. I haven't gotten there yet. I've been next year.
And when my oldest was learning to drive, all of that came rushing back to me and pretty much vomited on my lap while she's in the driver's seat.
Wow.
And we found ourselves in some situations that were my fault because I overreacted.
Wow.
And she kept her cool. And fortunately, I had taught her enough about emotions and all of this stuff, and apparently had talked about these previous deaths and accidents and things like that. So she recognized it for what it was. Mom's reacting. Mom is experiencing some emotional triggers. This experience has pushed her emotional bruise, and she kept her cool. I didn't. Wow. When we got to a safe place and were able to talk it out, she was like, Mom, until you resolve these issues, we can't drive anymore.
Oh, she's telling you.
She was telling me, and rightly so. Rightly so. So it doesn't have to be that extreme.
Yeah. But look how many years it took for you to have that bruise pushed,
Yes. And looking back, I didn't realize that I refuse to let people drive me around. I am always my own driver. I will drive myself because I don't feel safe when somebody else is driving. Now, look, that I've also brought up limiting beliefs. I'm not safe when someone else drives.
Yeah.
And so those emotional triggers really have a lot to them, and we need to look at them so that we don't bring chaos or damage or danger to other people like I put my daughter in.
Right. But thankfully you had taught her all the skills. So she was able to deal.
I did that part right. So but we do want to be careful with our emotional triggers, and they are worth looking at because they are stored inside us, and they can cause psychological distress as well as damage in the body depending on where they're stored.
Yeah. Well, and I've done work with Shelby also, and I had some triggers that I worked through too that I didn't know why things kept repeating in my life. And I guess I was in that loop that you talked about. And then after I was able to do some work with her and release some of those layers, and then her able to reveal, like, here's what the triggers are. These happened a long time ago. Then I was able to heal from that and release that. But I understand completely what you're saying, because I've seen the same thing happen in my life until I started working with you, just that this thing would happen. And why does that set me off? Like every single time, like why is this setting me off? And so, it's so good to know those triggers too, because that trigger about you now that you're conscious of that. And then we can do work on it when we bring it to the conscious.
Yes. Once it's brought to the conscious awareness, you've got something to work with. Now I've got driver number 3 coming up.
Oh gosh.
And I feel the next wave of emotions. I'm like, okay, we're going to have to sit down and do a few sessions on this.
Right. For yourself or for him?
Me.
For you. You can let your daughter do some sessions for you. So what would you say, like, if people are doing other health practices like nutrition or exercise or those things, how can they integrate emotional healing with these and just enhance their overall well-being?
I think really just becoming aware of their emotions and their thought processes and how it's affecting them. I see people they look physically fit. They
Mm,
look healthy and they're like, why can't I get past this? Or why is my body doing this? And one thing they really just don't realize is trapped emotions. Let's say that it's in the stomach. We've got trapped emotions in the stomach. We've got some anxiety, some worry warts out there, right? That
mm-hmm.
those are stomach related emotions. And if they trap them in the stomach, let's say they even trapped them 10 years before when they were going through a stressful situation. Again, it's a thing. An emotion is a thing. It's not empty air.
Yeah.
It takes up space. It's got a frequency. If it's in there, it's causing some blockage of sorts, right?
Yeah.
And making it difficult for digestion to happen or for things to run smoothly. And so, again, being aware that emotions are a real thing and so are thoughts, that it can inhibit your physical health even when you're exercising, even when you're eating well and doing all the things, it still can create blocks in your health.
Yeah. Well, and that's like where you know, me and my husband have had friends who were like so super healthy and then they like die of a heart attack, and it's like, what? Like they ate good, they were working out, they were doing everything. What the heck happened that their heart just gave out? It's crazy. And then, I would say, what about people who have even like cancer and things like that? I've just heard a story about a guy who had leukemia. He got leukemia, like he's super, super healthy, fit guy, all of a sudden got leukemia. And his father and his grandfather both died from leukemia. And the person that was telling me the story said that every time that he would get sick, a cold, anything, he would say, I probably have cancer. I probably have cancer, because that was his biggest fear, was that he was going to die like his dad and his grandfather. And so it's almost like he like self-actualized it, right? Like he told himself, you're going to die from, you're going to get cancer. Thankfully he got completely healed. God completely healed him, but he did change his mindset to get healed, which is crazy, because I was like, oh, we're talking about this today. And I actually heard this story just today. And he did. He completely changed he realized it was his mindset and his fear that he had, that fear, because that's, again, one of those low vibrations in our body. But I thought that was pretty cool, just like how even it can bring on something that critical to our health.
Your body is listening to you and it's going to do what you tell it to do. So if you're worried about those things, yeah, I would be worried, because you keep telling it that, well, I'm going to get cancer or I'm going to get this.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised when it manifests. Also, interestingly enough, when it's a generational thing like that, we can inherit our emotions from our parents and grandparents, just like we can inherit physical challenges that they had to.
Wow.
So inherited emotions can cause problems for a few generations until somebody, and it really changes their
So they
mind
break it.
and changes the patterns of the lines.
Yeah, literally breaking the chain. And you wouldn't even,
Yes,
sometimes people
literally.
wouldn't even know that, right? They just get into a rut per se, and they learned probably from their parent and grandparent, their emotional responses, and it's a learned thing as well, probably too.
Definitely learned as well as possibly inherited.
Yeah. And what would you say that, even because I know weight loss is a big thing now, like if people are hanging on to weight, have you seen instances with your clients, like after they're releasing emotions and dealing with the, facing the emotions where they've like had things like that, where they're losing weight, they're like getting more fit?
Yes, emotions can be a contributing factor in weight gain like that. And again, there's other things at play too,
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot of things
Not a
that play in it.
person, but definitely emotions can play a part, because let's just say you've got some negative thinking towards your job or your spouse or your kids or whatever, the economy, the government, whatever.
Yeah.
And you go through your mental loops and you get yourself worked up. And if you're really good at that, and you don't even have to be really good at that, you can spike your cortisol levels, right? Your stress hormone. And when you've got too much cortisol in the body now, that all started because of a thought, which led to an emotion. And now we're stressed out and we've got high blood pressure or just the too much cortisol in the body. That's going to interact with your hormones and your stress levels and your digestion and everything. And your body is going to stay in that stressed mode and try to protect you because you're stressed. And it's not going to let you rest and digest and, keep a healthy state.
Wow. Unbelievable. How important our emotions are. We just don't even, that's like the last thing we think of to take care of our body is our emotions. We're like, oh, let me change my diet. Let me change my workout. And then we don't worry about the emotions, but they're a super big, important part of it. So what, where do you see like the future of emotional healing? I think it's been more, I feel like it's kind of coming full circle now, and it may be just because I'm in that world right now. But do you feel like, where do you see it evolving? Like, are there new approaches and like studies that are coming out about how much emotions affect us as far as health?
I know that there's a lot of studies out there. I have not kept up with those for a while, so I can't give you an example of that, but I do know that they are out there. What I have seen is a lot of people becoming aware. Hey, I've got these emotions and I don't know what to do with them, and seeing more and more resources coming out, like coaching. Or
I have seen a lot of coaches.
Music therapy, frequencies. Like there's so many options out there now to help either release emotions or help to understand emotions. Even therapists taking some helpful information to social media. So you've got therapists bringing stuff as well as coaches bringing stuff. And there are so many options now that almost there's too many options. And you're like, where do I start?
I know. Right? Who do I listen to?
But I think that the more people become aware and they start taking care of their own mental health and addressing their emotions and teaching their kids to do so, what they're also doing is opening up that space for other people to heal. Now, whether that's their spouse or their kids or their loved ones, their friends, their coworkers, because there's not that stress at work with them anymore or whatever it is. When we heal, we allow others to start healing. And I think that's exactly what we need to be able to heal individually as families. When we heal our families, we heal our communities and societies, which then just grows, healing our nation, which is very much needed.
Yes.
Bringing peace to the world through the inner peace, not from the outside.
Right. Well, and in saying that, I know you have some programs that you're doing right now. She works with clients, but then you have one that's very special to your heart. If you just want to talk about that for a minute too, because there may be some people that need that are watching.
Yes. So I do emotion code and I do body code as well as coaching in my sessions. But I have really felt the tug lately to take a little bit more of that information and make it free to people and put it on social media and address some of those family issues and those personal issues, especially as parents, because so many of us, we know how to have a baby, but we don't know how to parent it.
Yep, that's true.
We're not trained in that. And so just be able to help those parents navigate, hey, I'm like 10, 15 years into those and I don't know what I'm doing. So I
won't feel bad.
Yes, don't worry, there's hope. So I will be, now this is my project for this year, so I'm just getting up and going barely. It's going to be my Instagram channel. It's called Shelby on Families, and I'll be taking a lot of those coaching principles as well as some emotional techniques into those reels and bringing my kids along in it and giving the kid perspective of things too, to start helping families work through some of their challenges and struggles. And my hope is to take one thing, one doable thing, one thing to think about, one thing to act on in those reels so people can get started right away until they know where they want to go to get additional information and help.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to put your website up here. Will they be able to see your Instagram there too? Do you have it on there?
They will soon.
Okay.
I do have my other Instagram on there.
Okay. So here's her website, real-relief.com. You can go on there if you want to book a session, if you want to book a discovery call with her, or you want to find out more about what she's doing or want to get some help. That is where you will find her. She's amazing to work with. I have worked with her over the last year and have done a lot of life change. It's changed my life. Like it's like what she does is life changing. So if you have not ever done anything and you've been looking for somewhere to turn just to get some answers for your emotional and even chronic illnesses and stuff, because like we said, a lot of times it's tied to emotional things, that baggage that we're holding on to, then definitely reach out to Shelby, because she is amazing at what she does. And she really takes the time with you, and you get like a report of everything that y'all talked about. And so you can go back, because during the session, sometimes I don't remember everything that we did. And so it's good to have that afterwards to say, oh my gosh, yeah, I released this, I released that, I released this. And then it's very eye-opening too, to see, like you said, the generational things, because I've had a lot of generational things that I've cleared out. And I think you told me that once, like when you're breaking the chain, it also breaks the chain for like all of the family that came before you, right?
Yes, it can. So that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I just want to be careful on the subject for your podcast. But those that believe that a person goes on living in the next life, they take those emotions with them. And so when you release them off of yourself, if that person is open and willing, and they usually are, because they don't want those negative emotions with them, it will release off of them too, as well as it can change the course of the future for your children and your children's children as well, because they don't have to go into the future.
That's powerful. That's very powerful. Very, very powerful. So thank you so much for being on today at such a wealth of information about emotions. I know we could talk for hours about all of this, and we might have to do a part 2 at some point. But I always like to leave our listeners with like one thing one actionable tip that they can take away from the episode and just start putting into action right now. Is there one thing that you could leave them with that they could start like today doing to help with emotions?
Yes, as simple as it sounds, I would challenge them to get clear on what they're feeling. And if they're not sure, then go get yourself an emotion chart. You can even get the emotion code chart online for free. Print it out. And then when you're stuck in an emotion, you've just had a reaction, or you're sitting down trying to figure out, what was I feeling when this thing went down? Look at the chart and pinpoint it, and then look it up. Go learn the definitions. Learn emotions, learn the definitions, learn to feel them.
That's awesome. I'm going to go do that. I have that book at home. I just need to open it up again. I think I've only read it halfway through, but it's a very, very good book. Emotion
You need
Code.
to read it.
Yes, it is. It's very good. Well, thank you again for being with us today. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule. And we will probably visit again sometime soon, because I know I'm probably going to get a lot of people. So if you have comments, put them in here. If you have questions, put them in there. If you want to find out more about what Shelby does, then go to her website, real-relief.com. And we will see you next week on From the Inside Out.
Thanks, Ashley.